The multiverse didn't break with fanfare. It tore open like shrapnel through armor plating, sudden, violent, and catastrophic. Above the Nevada desert, reality buckled. Space folded in on itself with a sound like tearing metal. And through the wound in dimensions, something massive began to fall. SWORD's orbital sensors screamed warnings 3 seconds before the first object breached. Commander Abigail Brand stared at readouts that made no sense. 30 contacts, descending fast, each one massing between 10 and 100 tons. Not meteors, not spacecraft, something else entirely. The first battle mech hit the desert floor at 0647 hours with enough force to register on seismographs in California. A Timberwolf, 75 tons of fusion-powered war machine, absorbed the impact through reinforced myomer legs and actuators designed for orbital drops. Its torso-mounted targeting systems came online immediately, sweeping the alien landscape with sensors that had never seen Earth's sky. Behind it, 29 more mechs completed their emergency landing, their drop ship nowhere to be found, lost somewhere in the dimensional breach that had swallowed them between one heartbeat and the next. Star Colonel Evelyn Roderick's command couch rattled as her direwolf touched down, the 100-ton assault mech's feet cratering sand into glass. Warning klaxons filled her cockpit. Dimensional displacement, unknown stellar coordinates, total communications blackout with the clan fleet. Through her viewport, she saw her binary scattered across 3 kilometers of desert, smoke rising from heat sinks as fusion reactors stabilized after the impossible transit. "All units, sound off," she transmitted on the emergency frequency. One by one, her mech warriors responded. 30 mechs. No casualties from the drop, no drop ship, no jump ship, no way home. And according to her navigation computer, they were impossibly far from any known space. Or this wasn't their space at all. 300 kilometers away, in the rebuilt Avengers compound, alarms began to wail. Captain America was in the training room when the alert came through. By the time he reached the command center, half the remaining Avengers were already assembling. The holographic display showed the Nevada impact site in real-time satellite imagery. And what Steve Rogers saw made him reach for his shield on instinct. They looked like walking tanks. Humanoid war machines, each one bristling with weapon systems that SWORD's preliminary scans identified as energy cannons, projectile weapons, and missile batteries. They weren't attacking. They were forming a defensive perimeter with military precision that Steve recognized immediately. These weren't monsters or aliens acting on instinct. This was a disciplined military force following tactical doctrine. SWORD's mobilizing a response team, Monica Rambeau reported, her voice tight. But Brand wants us on site. Whatever came through that dimensional rift, it's armed for war. Spider-Man dropped from the ceiling, his new suit's sensors already analyzing the threat data. "Okay, so, giant robots. Why is it always giant robots? Couldn't the multiverse send us something nice for once? Like a dimension where pizza has negative calories?" "Focus, Peter," Sam Wilson said, his Captain America uniform already on. "These things dropped with enough force to trigger earthquake sensors. If they're hostile, then we need to know before they start marching toward populated areas," Steve finished. He studied the tactical display. 30 war machines, unknown capabilities, unknown intentions. But their formation told him everything he needed to know about their training. "We go in ready for anything, but we talk first. They're not attacking. That means something." In the Nevada desert, Star Colonel Roderick stood in her dire wolf's cockpit, running through scenarios that all ended badly. Her mission had been simple: rescue the reconnaissance star that had gone missing 3 days ago. jump to their last known coordinates, locate them, bring them home. Instead, the missed jump had thrown them somewhere impossible, and every sensor reading screamed wrongness. The star overhead burned the wrong color. The atmospheric composition was within tolerance, but subtly off. And her long-range scanners detected technology signatures that matched no known civilization in the inner sphere or clan space. "Star Captain Marcus," she transmitted to her second-in-command's Warhawk. "Defensive posture, Gamma. No one fires unless fired upon. We need intelligence before we can plan extraction." "AF, Star Colonel. But our fusion reserves won't last forever. If we cannot locate a jump ship..." "One problem at a time, Marcus. First, we determine where we are. Then we find our missing warriors. Then we find a way home." She checked her ammunition counters. Full load, 4 PPCs, 6 machine guns, missiles in reserve. Against whatever this dimension held, she prayed it would be enough. The Quinjet's engine screamed as it crossed into Nevada airspace. Steve Rogers stood in the passenger bay, shield mag locked to his arm, watching the desert approach. Beside him, Sam Wilson checked his wings. Spider-Man clung to the ceiling, nervous energy radiating from him. Monica Rambeau piloted with practiced ease, but her jaw was set tight. "Sword's drone feeds show no hostile action," she reported. "They're just waiting. Weapons powered but not targeting. Defensive formation holding steady." "Then we give them a chance," Steve said. "But stay sharp. We don't know what brought them here or what they want." Through the Quinjet's canopy, the war machines came into view. Even from altitude, they were intimidating, towering bipedal forms that moved with mechanical grace, their weapon arms tracking the Quinjet's approach with professional precision. Steve had fought Hydra supertanks, Chitauri Leviathans, and Thanos' army. These were different. These were soldiers. As the Quinjet descended, Star Colonel Roderick's targeting computer locked onto the approaching aircraft. Unknown design, atmospheric capable, likely military. She keyed her external speakers to broadcast on standard frequencies, hoping translation protocols would bridge whatever linguistic gap existed. "Unknown aircraft. This is Star Colonel Evelyn Roderick, Clan Wolf, Keshik Galaxy. We are a military force displaced by dimensional anomaly. We are not hostile, but we are armed and will defend ourselves. Identify yourselves and state your intentions." The response came in clear English, and Roderick's blood chilled. Not because she couldn't understand, her mech's computer provided instant translation, but because the voice carried absolute authority wrapped in courtesy. "Star Colonel Roderick, this is Captain Steve Rogers of the Avengers. We're here to talk. You're on Earth, and you've got a lot of people very nervous. How about we discuss this face to face before anyone makes a mistake?" Earth. The name meant nothing to Roderick's tactical database, but the tone meant everything. She'd heard it before in officers who'd seen too much combat, who knew the cost of war and preferred diplomacy when possible. Against every instinct screaming to maintain secure perimeter, she made a decision that would change everything. "AF, Captain Rogers. Land your craft 1 kilometer north of my position. You may approach with a security detail. But know this, my warriors have traveled far, and we will not be detained or disarmed." Steve smiled grimly. "Wouldn't dream of it, Colonel. We'll be down in 2 minutes." As the Quinjet descended, Peter Parker's spider sense tingled, not danger exactly, but potential. The kind that came before everything changed. He looked at the giant war machines bristling with weapons and thought about the conversation he'd need to have with May about his insurance coverage. "So, he said into the tense silence. Anyone else thinking this is going to get really complicated really fast? No one answered. They were too busy preparing for first contact with a military force from another dimension. But in the back of his mind, Steve Rogers was already thinking ahead. These warriors were displaced, searching for lost comrades, and heavily armed in a world that didn't understand them. That made them dangerous. But it also made them desperate. And desperate soldiers with honor could become the best allies or the worst enemies. The Quinjet touched down on sand still warm from fusion-heated Myomer. Through the viewport, 30 war machines stood silent watch. And somewhere in that steel forest, decisions were being made that would determine whether this first contact ended in alliance or annihilation. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. With great power comes great responsibility. The loading ramp descended. Steve Rogers walked out into the Nevada sun, shield on his arm, and looked up at the 75-ton Timberwolf that pivoted to face him. Somewhere inside that machine, a warrior from another universe was making the same calculation he was. Friend or threat? The Multiverse had sent Earth soldiers. Now both sides would discover what that really meant. The Timberwolf's cockpit hatch hissed open with a pneumatic sigh that echoed across the desert. Steve Rogers watched as a figure descended the external ladder. Not what he expected. Star Colonel Evelyn Roderick was perhaps 40. Her dark hair pulled back in a practical bun, wearing a cooling vest over combat fatigues that looked simultaneously familiar and alien. Patches on her shoulders showed a wolf's head insignia. Her sidearm remained holstered, but her hand stayed close to it. She crossed the 50 meters between her mech and the Avengers with the measured pace of someone who'd walked between armies before. When she stopped 3 meters away, Steve saw recognition in her eyes. Not of him specifically, but of what he represented. Another soldier, another commander weighing lives and tactics. "Captain Rogers," she said, her accent strange but comprehensible. "Your world seems remarkably unprepared for extraterrestrial contact, given that orbital platform watching us." "We've had plenty of contact," Sam Wilson said from Steve's left. "Usually it involves someone trying to conquer us. You'll forgive the cautious welcome." Roderick's expression didn't change. "We are not conquerors. We are a rescue force. 3 days ago, one of our reconnaissance stars, a 5-mech unit, vanished during a standard patrol sweep. Our intelligence suggested dimensional instability in their last known coordinates. When we jumped to investigate," she gestured at the mechs behind her, "the laws of physics failed us. We emerged here, wherever here is." "Earth," Monica Rambeau said from the Quinjet's cockpit, her voice carrying through the external speakers. "Sol system, 3rd planet. And according to our scans, you're putting out enough radiation signature to light up every sensor from here to the moon. Those fusion reactors are standard power plants for battle mechs," Roderick interrupted. "Shielded, stable, and operating at nominal efficiency. Your sensors detect them because your technology appears remarkably primitive in some areas, while inexplicably advanced in others." Her eyes narrowed. "That aircraft should not be capable of the maneuvers I observed during your approach, given its visible thruster configuration. And you, Captain," she looked at Steve directly, "are not wearing powered armor. Yet my thermal scanners suggest you are generating body heat consistent with extreme physical exertion while standing still." "Spider-Man, still in the Quinjet," whispered to Monica. "Is it just me? Or is she really good at this? Because she's really good at this." Steve kept his voice level. We've got enhanced individuals, alien technology, magic. This Earth has seen a lot in the past few years. Your mechs are impressive, Colonel. But they're not the strangest thing we've encountered. He paused. You said you're looking for lost soldiers. We can help with that. But first, I need to know, are you willing to work with us? Or are we going to have a problem? For a long moment, Roderick studied him. Then she turned and spoke into a communicator on her wrist in a language that sounded like a mix of German, Russian, and something older. The battle mechs behind her shifted, weapons pointing skyward in a clear stand-down posture. My warriors will hold position, she said. But understand this, Captain Rogers. We are not supplicants begging for your world's mercy. We are Clan Wolf, descendants of Alexander Kerensky, and we have fought across 1,000 worlds. We seek only our lost comrades and a way home. If your world helps us achieve this, we will be allies. If your world seeks to imprison or exploit us. She let the sentence hang. Noted, Steve said. But you should understand something too. This planet has fought off alien invasions, cosmic threats, and a Titan who tried to wipe out half of all life. We're not easy prey, and we don't take kindly to threats. His voice softened slightly. That said, we're also not in the habit of abandoning soldiers looking for their own. You want to find your people? We'll help. But you play by our rules while you're here. Acceptable, Roderick said immediately. Provided your rules are military in nature and not political theater. Before Steve could respond, an alarm shrieked from the Quinjet. Monica's voice cut through, urgent and sharp. We've got incoming. Multiple signatures, heading this way fast. Hydra dropships, AIM hover transports, and something else I can't identify. ETA 3 minutes. Roderick's hand went to her communicator. All units, combat alert, unknown hostiles inbound. Prepare for... Belay that, Steve shouted. Colonel, if your mechs open fire on those aircraft, every military force on this planet will consider you the aggressor. Let us handle this first. Captain, my warriors do not stand idle while enemies approach. These aren't your enemies yet, Sam said, wings deploying from his pack. They're ours. Hydra, AIM, these are terrorist organizations. They've been monitoring the same feeds we have. They want your technology. Roderick's jaw clenched. Then they have made a fatal error in judgment. The sky darkened with approaching aircraft. Hydra's black dropships flanked by AIM's distinctive yellow and black transports. And behind them, something that made Steve's blood run cold. A massive flying fortress, bearing the green and silver livery of an organization he'd thought destroyed years ago. Is that... Monica started. Advanced idea mechanics combined with Hydra remnants, Steve confirmed. And they brought everything they had. He turned to Roderick. Colonel, I'm asking you to trust me. Let us try to defuse this first. If it goes bad, Captain, your enemies will learn why our civilization has survived 800 years of continuous warfare. Roderick raised her communicator. All units, weapons hot, but hold fire. Let these Avengers attempt their diplomacy. But target acquisition protocols active. If they fire first, burn them from the sky. Through the cockpit of her dire wolf, Roderick watched her tactical display populate with hostile signatures. 30 enemy aircraft against 30 battle mechs. Poor odds for the aircraft. But she'd heard the conviction in Roger's voice. These terrorists wanted to steal military technology. In her universe, such thieves learned hard lessons. Here, perhaps the lesson would need to be taught again. The Hydra flagship descended, its forward weapons ports opening. A voice boomed across the desert, electronically amplified and arrogant. "Attention extraterrestrial forces. You are surrounded by the combined might of Hydra and advanced idea mechanics. Your technology belongs to us. Surrender your war machines, and you will be spared. Resist and..." A single PPC's discharge lit up the desert like a miniature sun. Star Captain Marcus's Warhawk had fired one shot, not at the Hydra craft, but into the sand 50 meters ahead of it, creating a crater of fused glass 10 meters wide. Roderick's voice cut through every frequency. "This is your only warning. Approach closer and the next shot goes through your engines. We are soldiers of Clan Wolf. We do not surrender. We do not negotiate with bandits. Leave. Now." In the sudden silence, Steve Rogers looked at the fused glass crater, then up at the Warhawk. "Colonel," he said quietly, "that was a hell of a warning shot." "That was a demonstration of minimal force, Captain," Roderick replied, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of military doctrine. "The next one will not be." The Hydra flagship hesitated. Steve could see the calculation happening. Did they have weapons that could match that kind of firepower? The answer came when the fortress began to back away, its weapons ports closing. But the AIM transports didn't retreat. They scattered, circling wide, and Steve's tactical instincts screamed danger. "They're trying to flank," Sam said. "Get into position for..." The first missile streaked from an AM transport, not toward the mechs, but directly at the Quinjet. Monica threw the aircraft into a barrel roll, but the missile tracked, its guidance system locked. Steve watched it come, knowing he couldn't reach it. Couldn't stop it. A laser beam, impossibly precise, intersected the missile mid-flight. The warhead detonated harmlessly, and when Steve looked back, a Jenner, 25 tons of light reconnaissance mech, had its medium laser arm raised, smoke curling from the barrel. "They fired first," Roderick said into the sudden chaos. "All units, weapons free. Disable only. Captain Rogers, I suggest your people find cover." What happened next would be analyzed by SHIELD, SWORD, and every military intelligence agency on Earth for months afterward. The battle mechs didn't charge. They didn't panic. They simply executed a textbook anti-aircraft defensive engagement with the cold efficiency of warriors who'd fought this battle 1,000 times before. Lasers stitched through the air with surgical precision, targeting engines and weapon systems. Autocannon fire, solid slugs moving at hypersonic velocities, tore through armor plating. Missiles launched in coordinated volleys, overwhelming point defense systems. And through it all, the mech warriors maintained fire discipline that would have made any Marine Corps gunnery sergeant weep with envy. An AIM transport tried to ram a Centurion. The 50-ton mech simply stepped aside with impossible grace and backhanded the craft with its autocannon arm, sending it spinning into the sand in a controlled crash that left the crew alive but thoroughly disabled. Spider-Man, watching from the Quinjet's open ramp, couldn't help himself. "Okay, that was actually kind of awesome. Is it weird that I think that was awesome?" "Little bit," Sam said, launching skyward on his wings to intercept a Hydra fighter trying to get an angle on the mechs. But before he could engage, a PPC bolt from a Timber Wolf turned the fighter's starboard engine into molten slag, forcing an emergency landing. Steve watched Roderick stand calmly in front of her direwolf, not even flinching as weapons fire and explosions erupted around her. This was her element. This was what her people did. In 3 minutes, it was over. 17 aircraft disabled, crews ejected or surrendering. 13 more retreating at maximum speed. 0 battle mech damage. 0 casualties on either side. though that was clearly by design. The mech warriors had aimed to disable, not destroy. As the last Hydra transport vanished over the horizon, Steve walked up to Roderick. She was checking her communicator, her expression neutral. "You could have killed them all," he said. "Yes," she agreed simply. "But you asked us to trust you." "Trust requires demonstration." She looked at him. "Your enemies are poorly trained and equipped with inferior technology. They pose no threat to my binary. But I suspect they are not your only problems." "Not even close," Steve admitted. He made a decision that would probably give S.H.I.E.L.D.'s bureaucrats ulcers for months. "Colonel Roderick, I'm formally requesting your cooperation in a joint operation. You need to find your missing soldiers. We need to figure out how you got here and how to get you home. And apparently, we both need to deal with organizations that want your technology." "A logical proposal," Roderick said. "But I will not place my warriors under your command structure." "Wouldn't ask you to," Steve said. "Joint operation means joint command. We share intelligence, coordinate operations, and work toward common goals." He extended his hand. "What do you say, Colonel? Temporary alliance?" Roderick looked at the hand, then at the shield on his arm, then back at his face. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her, because she gripped his hand firmly. "Bargained well and done, Captain Rogers. Clan Wolf will honor this alliance." She paused. "But know this, when we find our missing warriors, and when we find a way home, we will leave. Your world is not ours. Our duty lies elsewhere." "Understood," Steve said. "But while you're here, you're going to learn a lot about this Earth. We've got heroes who can move mountains, sorcerers who bend reality, gods who walk among us. Your mechs are impressive, Colonel, but this universe runs on rules you've never seen before." "Then we will adapt," Roderick said simply. "It is what warriors do." As sword dropships began landing to coordinate with the Avengers, and as news feeds around the world erupted with footage of giant robots fighting off terrorists in the Nevada desert, two soldiers from different universes stood together and planned their next move. Neither one knew that in a castle in Latveria, Victor Von Doom watched the same footage with keen interest, or that in a Hydra bunker, scientists were already analyzing weapon signatures, or that in orbit, something ancient and cosmic had taken notice of technology that shouldn't exist in this reality. The invasion had been accidental. The Sword Mobile Command Center materialized in the Nevada desert like a small city being deployed in fast-forward, modular structures assembled by teams wearing environmental suits, sensor arrays rising from truck beds, and enough communication equipment to coordinate a small war. Commander Abigail Brand stepped out of the primary module and surveyed the scene with the practiced eye of someone who'd managed first contact scenarios with Kree, Skrull, and Shi'ar forces. The battle mechs were different. They weren't alien in the traditional sense. They were human-made, just from humans who'd taken a very different technological path. And that made them potentially more dangerous than any alien incursion. "Captain Rogers," Brand said as Steve approached with Colonel Roderick, "I'm officially impressed and slightly horrified. Your new friends just demonstrated firepower comparable to a Quinjet squadron, with precision that suggests military training several centuries ahead of current Earth standard." "They're from the 32nd century, Steve said. "Their timeline, anyway." "Commander Brand, this is Star Colonel Evelyn Roderick, Clan Wolf. Colonel, Commander Brand runs SWORD, Strategic Worldview Observation and Response Department. She handles threats from space. And apparently from other dimensions now," Brand said, offering her hand. Roderick shook it with the same formal efficiency she'd shown Steve. "Colonel, We need to scan your mechs, not to study them. Though our science team is probably already having religious experiences over those fusion reactors, but to understand what brought you here. If there's a dimensional breach, we need to close it before something else comes through. Acceptable, Roderick said. But no one disassembles my warriors' machines without explicit permission, and any data you gather remains classified under joint operational security. Fair enough, Brand agreed. She pulled up a holographic display from her wrist computer. We've been analyzing the energy signature from your arrival. The dimensional breach occurred at coordinates that coincide with a known nexus event, a point where multiple realities converge. Usually the TVA handles this kind of thing, but TVA? Roderick interrupted. Time Variance Authority, Steve explained. They monitor the multiverse. Or they did, until recently. It's complicated. Everything about your universe appears complicated, Roderick observed. In my experience, complications breed opportunities for enemies. As if on cue, Tony Stark's voice cut through the command center speakers. Please tell me I'm seeing things. Please tell me there aren't actually 30 giant robots sitting in the Nevada desert that nobody thought to call me about until now. Steve sighed. Tony. Because I have been watching news feeds for the last 20 minutes, watching what appears to be walking tanks fighting off Hydra, and thinking to myself, gee, I bet Steve tried to handle this with just talking and patriotic optimism, and now we have a potential international incident. A Quinjet, one of Stark's personal models, based on the gold-trimmed edges, screamed overhead and landed with enough flourish to kick up dramatic sand clouds. Tony Stark emerged in his Mark 85 armor, face plate up, and walked directly toward the nearest battle mech, Star Captain Marcus's Warhawk. Okay, Tony said, his voice carrying across the desert. I have so many questions. Starting with, how does a 75-ton bipedal machine not sink into loose sand? What's your ground pressure distribution? How are you cooling those fusion reactors without visible radiators? And is that actually a particle projection cannon? Because if it is, I'm going to need to have a very serious conversation with our physics department about what they told me was impossible. Roderick's expression shifted. Not quite a smile, but something close. You are an engineer. Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist, Tony said automatically. Also formerly Avenger, currently Avenger adjacent. And definitely the person who should have been called first when giant robots showed up. He looked at Steve. No offense, Cap, but your idea of technology assessment is, does it shoot? Whereas I actually understand the implications of portable fusion reactors. None taken, Steve said dryly. Tony Stark, meet Star Colonel Evelyn Roderick. Colonel, this is Tony. Try not to let him disassemble your mechs while you're not looking. I make no promises, Tony said cheerfully. He was already scanning the Warhawk with armor-mounted sensors, his HUD filling with data that made his genius brain light up like Christmas. Oh, this is beautiful. Myomer bundles acting as artificial muscle. Fusion reactor in the torso for center of mass stability. Modular weapon systems. Whoever designed this actually understood combined arms warfare. He looked at Roderick with newfound respect. Your people's engineers are good. They are adequate, Roderick said, which Tony immediately recognized as high praise from a military pragmatist. Our technology evolved through necessity. 800 years of near-constant warfare tends to refine engineering principles. 800 years? Tony's faceplate closed as Jarvis ran calculations. That explains the maturity of the design. This isn't bleeding-edge experimental tech. This is proven, refined, battlefield-tested equipment. His voice took on a thoughtful tone, which makes it dangerous in entirely different ways. Indeed, Roderick agreed. Mr. Stark, I understand you designed similar powered armor. Similar is generous, Tony admitted, his faceplate retracting again. My suits are impressive, but they're designed for one user. Your mechs are platforms, weapons systems, sensor arrays, and armor wrapped around a fusion reactor and a mech warrior. Different philosophy entirely. He paused. I want to see inside one. No, Roderick said flatly. Not even a little peek? No. What if I said please? Mr. Stark, Roderick said with the patience of someone who dealt with ambitious engineers before. You will not examine BattleTech internals unless you wish to trigger a diplomatic incident. These machines are military equipment of the clans. Sharing their specifications with outsiders is forbidden by tradition and security doctrine. See, that just makes me want to see them more, Tony said. Then he caught Steve's expression and sighed. Fine. But I'm officially registering my disappointment. Noted, Roderick said. While Tony and Roderick engaged in what was clearly going to be an ongoing engineering discussion, Sam landed beside Steve, folding his wings. We've got a situation developing, he said quietly. SHIELD is mobilizing a response team. The UN Security Council is demanding answers, and about 6 different countries are claiming this desert is within their jurisdictional authority for extraterrestrial contact. Of course they are, Steve muttered. It gets better, Sam continued. The Daily Bugle is running a headline about killer robots from space. Social media is having a complete meltdown. And this is my favorite part. Apparently, Dr. Doom sent a formal communication through diplomatic channels requesting permission to examine the extraterrestrial technology for the benefit of mankind. Doom wants the mechs, Steve said flatly. Doom wants anything that's powerful and not his, Sam agreed. And he's got the political clout to make this complicated. Steve looked at the battle mechs standing silent sentinel across the desert, then at Roderick, who was now in animated discussion with Tony about something involving heat dissipation and endosteel frameworks. These weren't monsters. They weren't invaders. They were soldiers a long way from home, looking for their comrades. But to the world, they were walking weapons that had just demonstrated the ability to defeat multiple aircraft in minutes with 0 casualties. That made them targets. We need to move operations, Steve decided. Somewhere secure. Somewhere we can coordinate the search for Roderick's missing unit without every intelligence agency on Earth trying to infiltrate or attack. The Avengers compound, Brand suggested, having overheard. It's fortified, it's got space for your binary, Colonel, and it's neutral ground, politically speaking. Roderick considered this. My mechs require maintenance facilities, ammunition resupply, and space to operate if we locate our missing warriors and need to conduct a rescue operation. We've got fabrication facilities that built Quinjet repair bays, Tony said. I can have them retooled for your mechs in... Okay, it'll take a few days, but I can do it. And for ammunition? He looked thoughtful. What kind of munitions are we talking about? Autocannon slugs, missiles, and certain specialized warheads, Roderick said. Nothing you would classify as weapons of mass destruction, but effective against hardened targets. I can work with that, Tony said. Provided you share specifications, I'm not fabricating ammunition blind. Roderick's jaw tightened. This violates security protocols. So does being stranded in another universe, Tony pointed out. Look, Colonel, you want to find your people and go home. We want to help, but that requires trust, which requires information sharing. You don't have to give me complete schematics, but I need enough data to keep your mechs operational." For a long moment, Roderick was silent. Then she spoke into her communicator in that strange language again. The response came back quickly, and she nodded. "My star captains agree. We will share limited technical data necessary for operational support. But Mr. Stark, if your people attempt to reverse engineer our technology for military application, this alliance ends." "Understood," Tony said seriously. "Look, I'm all about building better armor and weapons. But I'm not stupid enough to think I can replicate 800 years of iterative design in a few weeks. Your tech stays yours." "Then we have an accord," Roderick said. Commander Brand pulled up a tactical map. "If we're moving to the Avengers compound, we need to do it soon. I'm tracking increased aircraft activity from multiple nations. Everyone wants eyes on these mechs, and not everyone is going to be as friendly as we are." "Agreed," Steve said. He looked at Roderick. "Can your mechs march to the compound?" "It's about 800 kilometers northeast." "Affirmative," Roderick said. "But we will be visible to every satellite and sensor system in orbit. Our movement will attract attention." "Let it," Steve said. "We'll make an official statement. Extraterrestrial military force conducting joint operations with the Avengers, searching for lost personnel, temporarily based at Avengers compound. Keep it simple. Keep it honest. And watch as every supervillain on the planet starts planning heists," Sam muttered. "They can try," Roderick said coldly. "They will not succeed." As the sun climbed higher over Nevada, decisions crystallized. SWORD would coordinate sensor data and close monitoring of the dimensional breach point. The Avengers would provide support and liaison with Earth authorities. The clans would bring their warriors and their technology to the compound, a beachhead in an alien universe. Tony was already mentally redesigning maintenance bays and calculating ammunition specifications. Brand was updating threat assessments. Sam was coordinating with S.H.I.E.L.D. to manage the inevitable political fallout. And Steve watched Star Colonel Roderick issue orders to her mech warriors with the calm confidence of someone who'd commanded soldiers through impossible situations before. She was competent, pragmatic, and absolutely lethal when necessary. Exactly the kind of ally they needed, but also exactly the kind of asset every villain on Earth would kill to possess. "Colonel," Steve said quietly, "you should know. This world has threats you can't imagine. Sorcerers, gods, beings that can reshape reality. Your mechs are impressive, but—" "Captain," Roderick interrupted, "I have fought on vacuum worlds, in jungle environments, through urban warfare that leveled cities. I have commanded warriors against enemies armed with technology equivalent to yours, and enemies equipped with nothing but courage and improvised weapons. I do not underestimate threats." She met his eyes. "But I also do not overestimate them. These gods and sorcerers of yours, they bleed. They can be defeated. Everything can be defeated with the right tactics and sufficient firepower." "I hope you're right," Steve said, "because something tells me we're going to test that theory." In the distance, the battle mechs began to move, forming up for the march northeast. 30 war machines from another universe walking across Earth's surface for the first time, heading toward an uncertain future. And in orbit, something watched.